Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk about co-op and world boss invasion, because on the side of rewards, they are among the best game modes in Marvel Future Fight for giving you really great rewards for minimal time spent and minimal energy investment. But on the flip side, they are very low quality game modes, and I've made that sort of video before talking about low quality game modes in Marvel Future Fight. I speculated that special missions were going to be erased shortly before they introduced dimension missions, and I don't really want to go one way or another. The video is not about whether these game modes are low quality or not. They are low quality in terms of time spent because the game has rapidly outpaced the difficulty of co-op and world boss invasion. Back in the day, back in my day, in 2016 and 2017, these were actually harder game modes, not to the point of being impossible, not like GBR or like World Boss 99 or anything like that, but once upon a time, I kid you not, once upon a time, world co-op was so hard that you would die. Your characters would die and they would take 10 or 20 seconds to be revived. And the way that co-op works, you probably don't know this because, like I said, it's so easy now, but if all three characters die in co-op, you lose. You actually lose. And you have to try again with a different character. And back in the day, with co-op, you would get rewards for every single character that you use. So you would have to go through your entire roster. Sometimes you'd have to play 100 times in one day. It was an insane time sink. It was crazy. And it wasted tons of clear tickets, or it wasted tons of your time clicking through the menus over and over again. But once upon a time, co-op was hard. Not the point of the video. Once upon a time, world boss invasion was pretty hard too. Again, never crazy difficult. But like, let's say World Boss Ultimate Stage 1 difficulty, or World Boss Ultimate Stage 2 difficulty. If you don't pay attention, if you have a really bad character, if the people on your team are complete noobs with garbage cards and like no build, no obelisk, no ISO 8 set, you could legitimately lose and have to try again. But nowadays, it's extremely easy. Even for brand new accounts, you can go in. You're not going to get number 1 in terms of damage, but you can go in and you can just, you know, fly through these missions over and over again. In the case of co-op, you have a limit of whatever it is. I guess it's 25 times per day maximum. Minimum would be 15 times per day, because the minimum amount you can get towards your reward count is 20%. 5 rewards would be 25. The maximum is 35, which means you fill up the bar 3 times. You fill up the bar 100% with 3 tries, which is 15. For World Boss Invasion, you can play up to 71 times per day, which is insane. Now, in co-op, you know, if you get first place, you get like I said, 35% towards that reward bar. If you get last place, you get 20%. So there is a difference of almost double in terms of the reward, but you're not actually getting a reward. You're just getting closer to your next reward. So yes, noobs and newer players are punished for not being first in co-op, but it's not really a big, it's like a time punishment. It just means you're gonna have to play with a few more characters. What it does mean for very new accounts is you won't be able to get all 5 rewards on your first day. It's basically impossible unless you purposely played with friends and they purposely lost, which you could do. You could create a private room and you could invite your friends and they could just stand there and you could do all the damage. And then, you know, after a minute or two, they would be over. You'd get first place because, you know, new players don't have enough. You don't get 25 characters on your first day of playing Marvel Future Fight. You get pretty close. They give you a lot of free characters on day 1, but not quite 25. But in the case of World Boss Invasion, there is a larger penalty for not getting first place. And the larger penalty is that the chest that you get will be missing an extra reward. Any chest that you get, whether it's red, mythic, legendary, orange, or white, normal, will have an extra reward if you get first. So getting first versus second or third in World Boss Invasion does carry a little bit more of a reward. I do think the rewards for World Boss Invasion need to be, you know, increased or varied, because we're still missing a lot of, you know, bio-selector characters and other things like that. But what I wanted to talk about today is that there are actually, of course, characters that you can use to have a higher chance, almost a guarantee of getting first place in World Boss Invasion and co-op. Now, you probably already know about this, and it's not that big of a deal. And I'll, you know, if you don't know about it, I'll show you. And of course, it matters having tier 3s, having high cards and things like that. But essentially, there are certain characters who have not only high damaging skills, but they have skills that have very fast animations. And this is what I wanted to focus on for the rest of the video. Is I've actually put together a list of characters who I think have that combination of 2 things. Because you take a character like Thanos. Thanos has high damage, especially at tier 3, but what Thanos doesn't have, and hopefully I don't get disconnected here, What Thanos doesn't have is, and we're fighting Thanos, he doesn't have fast animations. All of his animations are very, very slow. So here we are going to press his 5th skill. Cyclops' 5th skill is the skill that you want to use. And there you go, I got first place. I had to finish him off because we didn't quite do the full amount of damage because I got interrupted. But Cyclops' 5th skill is probably, I think it's the best skill in the game for co-op and World Boss Invasion. If there are any sort of race type game modes, if there are any type of game modes like co-op and like World Boss Invasion where it's a one-shot game mode, Cyclops is the #1 character in the game for that. He does the most damage in the shortest amount of time. The shortest amount of time usually being under a second. There are definitely more characters that do more damage. You know, Sharon Rogers has way more raw damage than Cyclops, but it's going to take her 20 seconds to build up that raw damage by getting to her tier 3 skill. The second best character for co-op and World Boss Invasion is probably Gambit. And I love to do these sort of team-ups, not only because it's faster to put together a team, but I find that I actually do get better rewards by doing these thematic teams versus just any random 3 characters. Gambit, in the same way as Cyclops, he has a 5th skill that deals a ton of burst damage, but you will notice that Gambit has more of a wind-up. Cyclops has less of a wind-up, and it's that wind-up that we're talking about. Thanos has such a long wind-up on his 5th skill, such a long wind-up on his 4th skill. He's got a wind-up. He has some hits at the beginning of his 3rd skill, but there's still a wind-up. That wind-up will cost you first place, especially if you're playing against multiple high-level opponents that are tier 3. You will lose. Like, for example, Jean Grey has way more raw damage than Gambit, but I'm going to win because he's going to do his 5th skill. The advantage that Gambit has over Cyclops, you see the windup is when he pulls out his card. You have to slow down the animation, but he actually pulls out a card and then starts throwing it. Cyclops doesn't do that. He goes right into the lasers, and the animation hits immediately. So it's actually quite interesting. It's actually quite interesting to look at the micro and look at these characters' animations and recognize that, for example, Crescent deals more raw damage than Wolverine. That's just basically true. But Crescent's skills all have a long windup. Her 5th skill, there's one hit, and then there's a long windup for her and Io to like sort of cross paths again because they jump to either sides of the arena. So there's just not enough time. You know, her 4th skill has a long charge up and then a punch. So it just doesn't work for co-op and World Boss Invasion. Again, it's not a big thing. This is more for fun than for actual sort of strategy, but it does work for strategy. Whereas with Wolverine's 5th skill, it hits pretty quickly. Now, there is still a wind-up with Wolverine's 5th skill because he jumps into an iframe and then starts slashing. But in that case, I would actually guess if I saw a character, if I saw 2 players, if I was watching a race, if I was commentating some sort of one-shot, you know, competition, we've got Crescent on the left, we've got Sharon Rogers on the right, and we've got Wolverine in the middle. Who's going to win, folks? I would put my money on Wolverine. Speaking of Sharon Rogers, this is another interesting thing. Sharon Rogers now, with her new, whatever this is called, Star Knight uniform, her Roman uniform, is worse for one-shotting bosses in co-op and World Boss Invasion than she was before. With Darkstar, with her old uniform, her 5th skill has hits immediately, almost immediately with a short wind-up. Now her 5th skill has like no hits because she puts the spear up in the sky and then it rains down. By the time you put the spear up, the fight's over. Unless you're playing with 2 completely new players, the fight's over. Her 4th skill is probably your best bet nowadays, but even then she kind of dives to the opposite side. She yeets herself over the enemy, and you can actually lose targeting if the enemy moves too far forward. So she actually becomes a lot worse. Now, there are other really good characters for this sort of like one-shot mechanic, and I do actually keep them in mind because I want to get first place for World Boss Invasion. I don't really care too much about co-op, but it's exactly the same. It's 100% related, so that's why I brought them up side by side, and I also brought up the fact that co-op actually used to be really difficult. Where is Scarlet Witch? Did I use her already? Oh, okay. Scarlet Witch is another character that is really good for this because in the same way as Cyclops and Gambit, she has a skill that basically deals damage almost immediately after casting. And don't worry, I know you guys know about Cyclops, you know about Gambit, you know about Scarlet Witch. I've got some surprises for you, and I've got a test that I want to do as well with Awakened characters. But this is another one. Quicksilver is actually another good option. I won't end up showing you because we'll just talk about it now, but Quicksilver's 2nd skill, not 5, not 4, not 1, not 3, but his 2nd skill, especially with the new uniform, they buffed his 2nd skill. His 2nd skill has very fast animations, or a very fast animation, and it's got damage almost immediately. When you slow these skills down, it's important to recognize that some of these skills, you know, the animation might be 2 seconds, but the damage doesn't happen until after the 1st second. So you have that 1 second gap at the beginning where you get nothing, you're gonna lose. One of the best examples of this, and one of the biggest offenders of this, is probably Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom's 5th skill does so much damage, but that long ass windup, right? He has like a 2 or a 3 second windup. There we go. He's got like a 2. See, Quicksilver landed on the other side of the arena because he did his 5th skill and the targeting was so bad. See, Quicksilver screwed up. Now, Doctor Doom, yeah, he's got that big windup where he grabs his chin. There's no way you're going to win. There's just no way. You're never going to win with that kind of strategy. Now, check this out. This one was submitted by someone on Discord. Thank you so much for submitting it. Sorry, I don't remember your name off the top of my head. But Hulkbuster. This is crazy. Apparently, Hulkbuster out DPSs some tier 3 characters with how fast his 4th skill shoots out. For most of these characters that we're going to talk about, it's either their 5th skill or their 4th skill. You have characters like, we mentioned Wolverine's 5th skill, Mr. Fantastic's 5th skill, where he kind of bounces around like a pinball, Medusa's 4th skill, where she bounces around like a pinball, Storm's 1st skill, where she bounces around like a lightning pinball, Proxima's 5th skill. Proxima's 5th skill actually used to be one of the best in the game. If you guys remember back in the day, I used to play with Teddy on Teddy and others. Let's check this out. Hang on. Let's see how fast this happens. Okay, that was not that fast. I did expect it to be better. I have a pretty nicely built Hulkbuster. The nice thing about Hulkbuster, that was a bit slow. I actually expected more. The nice thing about Hulkbuster, the nice thing about Cyclops and Scarlet Witch and some of these other characters, Mr. Fantastic, Medusa, is they have self-buffing leaderships. That's another thing for World Boss Invasion. If they ever improve the rewards for World Boss Invasion, you're going to want to get first as much as possible. And so characters like Apocalypse, even, his 3rd skill is probably the best one to use because it has the shortest windup, but you're really using Apocalypse for his high damage and also for the fact that he has a self-buffing leadership. Setting up a situation where you're going to use a character but they're not in the leadership position is almost always a recipe to lose. So for example, I think Thor's 5th skill is good for World Boss Invasion, but you would never ever build a team where Thor was not in the leadership position for World Boss Invasion. Like, you would never do this and then do this, because in the time it takes you to switch from Iron Hammer to Thor, you're probably going to lose. So for that reason, even though Thor's 5th skill does a lot of damage, I think Captain Marvel is better because her 5th skill does some damage. It has way less hits than Thor's, which is worse, but she has a self-buffing leadership. So you're always getting that 30% energy attack. You don't have to worry about switching. For Captain Marvel, her 5th skill also has a really fast animation. So if you have some damage left, you could pop 2 or pop 1, probably pop 2 to finish them off. But characters like Mr. Fantastic, characters like Medusa, where they buff their own damage as a leader when they bounce around, those work really, really well. You've got characters like Ronan, which looks very similar to Gambit's 5th skill with his 4th skill. Now, I wanted to try the Warriors of the Sky because I think, well, I want to see if, first of all, she's got a self-buffing leadership. We're going to test 2 things out here. I think, I've never tried her before, but I think Blue Dragon's 4th skill is really good for World Boss Invasion, and I also want to see if the Awaken skill is ready right away. If the Awaken skill is not on cooldown, if it's ready to go, then Dr. Octopus would be another really good option. Red Skull wouldn't be as good of an option because his 5th skill has a windup at the beginning where there's like very few hits. You might be able to kill them with those first few hits, but if not, you will lose. But what I was trying to say was, back in the day when I used to play co-op on stream with viewers, when you could invite people via line chat, I used to play with Teddy and stuff like that, and Proxima was the fastest clear for World Boss Invasion and co-op by far. Nowadays, she would be considered slow compared to characters like Cyclops, Gambit, even Scarlet Witch, Ronan, even Nova with his 2nd skill, because she has to slam the staff down. So the Awaken skill is available. Now, the good thing about Blue Dragon's 4th skill is it gives her invincibility, so you won't get guard broken by characters. But there we go. We got 91% of the damage, self-buffing leadership, fast animation, and damage at the beginning of the animation. So a character like Mr. Fantastic, like Medusa, like Blue Dragon, really emulates that the strategy, like Cyclops, where you've got high damage, no wind-up. Wind-up is bad, and it's self-buffing leadership so that you don't have to switch. Some other options that I've thought of and that I've used in the past, and so we just confirmed as well that the Awakening skill is available. So Dr. Octopus would be amazing for World Boss Invasion. Don't even worry about giving him a leadership. He's going to probably one-shot with the 6th skill. Namor is nice with his 3rd skill. It's got damage right away, and it's got a lot, like a fast animation and a long iframe, so you don't have to worry about getting interrupted. Cable's 5th skill is actually not as good. It's not bad, but it's got a wind-up. He has to pull up the gun and start shooting. In that time, you can lose. Black Widow's 5th skill is honestly not that bad either. She jumps up and she slams down. The jump up is the wind up, so you can lose in that gap, but it's there. I mentioned Spider-Man 2099. And then the last one I want to mention is Victorious's 2nd skill. I think Victorious, I haven't tested her out. Maybe someone could test her out for me. I think Victorious's 2nd skill, self-buffing lead, and that 2nd skill has a really fast animation with damage right at the beginning. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Characters with very fast animations and characters that deal damage right at the beginning of their animation to one-shot and get first place in World Boss Invasion and co-op. It's not going to help you in a big way. I know most players autoplay co-op. You can't autoplay World Boss Invasion, so it does help there. I just showed you guys 5 out of 5 times where I got first place, and so this does give me 5 extra rewards. So there's definitely an incentive to doing this if you are not already doing it. So hopefully that's been helpful. More than helpful. I just wanted to have fun with some World Boss Invasion, one-shotting some bosses. This content is not something that you want to rely on, long term, but once in a while, a couple times a week, I like going into World Boss Invasion, have a little bit of fun, and see if I can discover any new strategies like that Hulkbuster 4th skill. Let me know what you think about that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.